Well, just so you know, by voice, I'm Randy. Melanie's here too.
Yeah, Melanie, hello.
And I'm Jesse.
Hi, Jesse. Good to hear your voice.
Yeah, nice to meet you on the Voice-a-tron.
Yeah, we've been tweeps for a while, so...
Yeah.
I think Jesse just invented my new favorite word, Voice-a-tron.
Voice-a-tron. I think that's, like a certain layer of the internet is the Voice-a-tron, so...
Yeah, who does telephones anymore?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, those count. The mobile... Those are the Mobiletrons.
Today we are here with Sarah Roark. I'm pronouncing that correct, right?
That's absolutely right.
Awesome. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Sarah.
Well, you got my name now. What else can I tell you? I'm a professional violinist. For a lot of my life, I've been a professional violinist turned author and comic creator. I've been writing mainly for the games industry for the last 15 years, and done some fiction within that milieu, some novels, novella, tie-in fiction. And then I decided that I wanted to get into comics and started up After Daylight about 2 years ago now.
Because you mentioned some very interesting things about your background. Would you like to jump there first? Like some of the, you mentioned writing for the games industry.
You know, I wouldn't have the writing skills that I have today without the games industry. I got in with White Wolf. I guess I should especially mention White Wolf because that's the company that I did almost all my game writing for. And they also are the ones who got me my first contracts for fiction, for the two novels in their Dark Ages series and the novella, which was a werewolf novella, actually, not a vampire one. And before that, you know, I was mostly just writing for my own pleasure. And I responded to one of their all calls. I had been playing the games for many years and playing all kinds of role-playing games for many years. And yeah, so I responded to the all call, and I wound up with the developer on the line, you know, saying, "Hey, let's try you out," which was kind of astonishing how quickly he made that decision and how fast I got thrown into the deep end. But I discovered that I loved it. So, and I'm all about gaming, not just role-playing games, but also computer games, mostly MMOs. I have a lot of very good friends in the gaming industry, some of whom are still doing that, and some have moved into just straight fantasy fiction and film, and really all kinds of genres. It's really kind of a little incubation house for creative people. A lot comes out of the gaming industry.
Before you jump to webcomics, what's some of the other fiction work you've done?
Well, I've been doing vampire fiction on a pro basis for quite a while, almost since I started to work with White Wolf. They put me on the vampire line right away. So I've been doing vampires as sort of serious fiction for such a long time that I kind of can't take it anymore. I had to do something with a little bit more of a comic twist on it. I still love vampires, but I just can't take them as completely seriously as I used to. So I needed to find a venue where I could indulge both my love and my satire, you know, for the genre, which is what the webcomic wound up being. But I really enjoyed writing the straight vampire fiction as well, especially since they had me writing for their Dark Ages line. A lot of that is set in the Middle Ages. So I wound up having to do a lot of historical research, and that's a chore to some writers, but I'm kind of a history goob, so I actually really got into it.
What made you go the webcomic route?
It's for all the fame, I'm sure.
And the money,
actually,
the fame and the money.
Bucks. Yeah, totally. The riches and the glory. Actually, I'd worked in the game industry long enough to have no illusions about the money or the fame. I feel that webcomics was a really good in for somebody who didn't have connections in the comics industry already. Any Yahoo can put stuff up on the internet, which is a little bit the downside of webcomics as well, because then you have the convincing game of trying to get people to come by and look at your webcomic. Hey, mine is really good. I know you've seen some other stinkers out there, but mine is really good. That's a fun game. But, you don't have the seal of approval from the gatekeepers. But on the other hand, nobody can stop you. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what I've liked best about it, is that as long as I could pay the hosting, I could do the comic, exactly the way I want for as long as I want. And I think if I had been trying to sit in a little room and just do the whole graphic novel by myself with, basically no audience feedback or participation until it was done, I think I probably would have gone a little bit insane. So one of the other nice things about the webcomic is that the regular updates, you get people who come back and become devoted to the series, and the energy that you get from that is really, really motivational to keep you going. Also, the deadlines are very motivational.
Yeah, no kidding.
Now you also illustrate it.
Yes.
Do you want to talk a little bit about your art background?
That, in a perfect world, I would have found a wonderful, non-busy pro artist who would have said, I would be delighted to illustrate your vampires on spec. Maybe it's actually better that it didn't turn out that way, but anybody who's been a comics writer seeking a partner artist will tell you that there's a lot more artists out there. There's a lot more writers needing artists than artists needing writers. Mm-hmm. So it's actually really difficult. I found talented coworkers, collaborators, but of course, since they were good, they were also working a lot, and there would reach a point where they had to kind of give their day art job precedence, and how can you blame them? We all have to make our creative living. So I decided that I would go ahead and give this one a try drawing it myself. And I was very aware that was not where my pro background was. I just try to comfort myself with looking at early Doonesbury, early Garfield, and saying that their styles really grew and matured as they went on, But the story was always there, and the appeal was always there, and so I thought, well, I just hope that the art can carry the story and carry the characters. So far, it seems like people do feel that it does. I enjoy the drawing process. I enjoy cartooning, particularly. I enjoy drawing humor, and I really enjoy the shading that I do on the comic. The black and white shading is very meditative. So there's a lot of little joys to it, but I've definitely had to up my game art-wise. I always drew for myself. I always drew, and I always illustrated my own stories. But I never had any kind of formal art background, so I had to get over that a little bit.
Yeah, I would not have guessed that. Looking at the webcomic, it looks really good. I wouldn't have guessed that you didn't have a formal art background.
Thanks. No, just a lot of self-taught. It was one of my major pursuits as a kid. It was always kind of behind violin, but it was definitely something that I studied a lot on my own time. So, and of course, the other thing about doing the webcomic and the regular deadline is it does force you to get, better as fast as you can. Mm-hmm. You can't really luxuriate. So hopefully that's been good for my art technique.
I think that the art style definitely, it works really well with your writing style. I can't imagine seeing it in somebody else's hand.
That's very cool for you to say. I like to think that someday I could hand off a guest art, have somebody do like a side plot arc or a mini series or something if I'm ever rolling in the big bucks and am able to hire a talented artist to do that. But I'm very glad to hear that they go together, the story and the art. For me that's the chief thing. The art is there to serve the story. So as long as it's strong enough to carry the story that I'm trying to do, I try not to compare myself too much to other artists.
No, you can't do that. You'd go crazy.
Yeah. Well, I am crazy, but I would go crazier for sure. It's easy though because there's so many people out there that are so wonderful. It's very easier. 5 seconds on the internet and you'll feel inferior. So.
Oh, sure. And if somebody does guest art of your character and they do it better than you, then you should start thinking horrible things like, well, clearly I'm the wrong person to be drawing Tank Monkey. So did it better.
Actually, I would love that though, because and like I said, part of the nice thing is not being quite as invested in the art with my ego. Now, if somebody came around and wrote my characters better, then we would have a problem.
Oh yeah.
That would be a declaration of war. But people are totally free to draw my characters way better than I could ever draw them. That actually, I always say that I'll know I've made it when people start doing fan fiction and fan art of the characters. That's like one of my benchmarks for success. Because if somebody loves your world so much they want to play in it, that means that what you've built really does have a life beyond you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You were saying earlier that most of the vampire fiction, like the novels you had written, were set in the Dark Ages. When you decided you wanted to do a comedy, did you already know that it was going to be set in modern day, or was that something you decided as you were like playing with the idea?
Absolutely, I wanted to do it in the modern day. That was from the very beginning because kind of what I wanted to explore was that clash of old world vampires plus modernity, and how really if there were vampires, they wouldn't. I don't think in this world of technology and surveillance and cameras everywhere, that they could really stay hidden for that long. I think it would inevitably come out, and so thinking about how that would play out is kind of the whole genesis for the idea of After Daylight. Now, I will gleefully bring in characters that are from the Middle Ages or from different eras, because nothing is more fun than culture shock, and having people of different cultures and centuries kind of clash with each other and not be able to relate to each other, both inside the vampire community and when you're talking about vampires and humans trying to relate. Mm-hmm. So there was really not any way that it could not be set fairly late in the historical continuum, because otherwise there wouldn't have been as much period versus period fun to have.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And the technology plays such a big role in it too.
Oh yes, absolutely. Technology is frightening in its own way, in some ways just as frightening as vampires. I don't cringe away from it, I embrace it, but I also do so, with one foot in the past and saying, I don't know what this is going to be. Do you guys know what this is going to be? Nobody knows what this is going to be. And, that can't help but be a little frightening, which is another one of the feelings behind After Daylight, is that sort of, we've stepped on the terra incognita here. What happens now?
Do you want to talk a little bit about the the main character of the story, at least who we come into the story following?
Kat. Yeah, this was actually one of the rare occasions where I designed a story first and then came up with the character that could best tell the story. Usually I do it the other way around. I'm very character focused, but for this, since I kind of started out with I want vampires to clash with modernity, I wanted a vampire character who would be kind of in betweenish. He's old enough to feel that vampire feeling of being out of sync with the times, which I think, of course, even humans like us get from time to time, but he has a little bit more severe case because he's kind of stuck in the 60s a little bit. Mm-hmm. But he's also young enough that he hasn't just run away and hide. He doesn't just run away and hide from the people of today. So he's in that in-between place. So I very deliberately decided I wanted that. I knew he was going to be a musician. I wanted to bring up some of the stuff that we can all relate to as, working creatives, about feeling disappointed with how your careers turned out, questioning whether you're the hot stuff that you always hoped that you would be or not. He has to deal with that a lot because he was this up and coming musician, and now he's working a night job, a retail job, and he doesn't feel that he can get back into his music career. That's kind of a universal human problem, but viewed through the vampire lens, it kind of takes on a sharper profile. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I knew he was going to be sort of modern, but not completely modern. I knew he was going to be a musician. I also decided there weren't enough Jewish vampires in literature, so
There you go. Yeah.
I made my contribution to that demographic. And he kind of started coming into shape. I think I was a little bit going off of historical figures from the folk rock era and the beatnik era, and that whole time, and just kind of trying to picture what would one of those guys be like if he'd been turned into a vampire.
It works well.
Thank you. Well, and then once they're made, they start taking on minds of their own.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of let them breathe and play and develop. And I know they're there when they start arguing with me in my head.
Yeah. Yep.
You know what I'm talking about, don't you?
I do.
They get stroppy with you.
Especially if you miss your deadlines.
Yeah, this is supposed to be my big plot point. Why are you focusing on that other character?
Yeah.
And he's not really intended to be the protagonist. He's more sort of an entry character. I'm trying to make it more of a strong ensemble cast series as it goes on, but you always need somebody to kind of ride along in the early stages with while you get your feet wet in the story. Somebody that you can kind of see things through. And I decided that he should be that character, but he's not going to be. All the little ones, all the other ones are developing their little side.
Mm-hmm.
Their stories, and you'll probably see a lot more of them getting the spotlight here and there too as the story goes on.
You had mentioned opting for like the webcomic, releasing it as a webcomic as opposed to just toiling away on it by yourself on this graphic novel. So, do you have the end plan, like the end game, plotted out for this? And this would kind of tie into the idea of then packaging them for the Kickstarter volumes, but
yeah, well, it's a little bit soap opera-ish in that I could probably just play with these characters indefinitely, like Doonesbury. Definitely, there are major events forecasted. It does have the potential to span a period of years or even decades, like Doonesbury, or Dykes to Watch Out For, which I would say is another kind of big model of the comic. Sometimes I call it Vampire Dykes to Watch Out For, where she just, she follows these characters through all their life changes and stuff, and through that you also see how the society changes around them. That's kind of what I'm doing. I don't actually have a grand conclusion in mind right now, but I do have major milestones, major climax points for each story arc that I'm plotting out.
And would you use those to decide this was book volume 1 and this is volume 2, and by those arcs?
Your volumes.
Absolutely, that's right. Yeah, like for instance, volume 1, which is the one that I'm kickstartering right now, takes the vampires and the humans from the very first glimmerings of internet rumor that vampires might be real, where first a very few mortals begin to take it seriously, and then over the course of the book, you see it becoming a little bit more inevitable, ever more serious, ever more imminent, and then by the end of volume 1, you're into full daylight, where the revelation is complete. I don't want to spoil with further details, but basically, volume 1 takes you from the first kind of conspiracy theory type websites all the way up to nobody's denying it anymore. It's now a reality of the world. But that's not even sort of the end of the fun, of course. So, that's just the beginning.
So, yeah, tell us about this Kickstarter then. It's for volume 1.
Yes.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, tell us about the Kickstarter.
Tell us about the Why? I don't mind if I do. Yes, the Kickstarter started on the 20th of October, and it's running through the 19th of November, so we're pretty much at the halfway mark here. And I actually didn't check it today, but last I looked, we were over 60% funded.
Oh, nice.
So it had a very good first couple weeks, but now we got to make the push.
Mm-hmm.
The push through the famous middle, and get people coming in droves, hopefully for the last 2 weeks. The goal is pretty modest. It's $5,800. I'm trying to fund a really nice print run of the book,
Mm-hmm.
and if I am able to make goal, then when I'm finished, I'll not only have enough books and merch to reward all my backers, but I'll also have a backlog of books that I can then take on the road, hit the road, sell at conventions, maybe get into some small retail stores, and of course there will also be a digital edition that's at full size, full resolution. What's on the web has to fit in that kind of bloggy format, so it's of necessity you're losing a lot of the artistic detail. This is going to be a full size, full letter size edition of the book where you can really see everything and all the shading and all the little Easter eggs I like to put in. That's basically what it's about, and it's consuming my life right now.
I bet.
But it's what, if there is to be a viable business model for this, it has to incorporate crowdfunding. So basically, if I am not prepared to do this, I feel like I might as well go home, or just do the comic in my side hours, as a hobby. But that's not what I came into this to do. I came into this to do it for serious, do it right, do it as close to full time as I can.
That's kind of a scary leap to make. It seems like going from webcomic to Kickstarter. Kickstarter would be that moment where it's like, yes, you feel vindicated because you've gotten some really good support, especially off the front end, and then like this middle part has got to be the tough part.
Everybody says so. I keep asking all my colleagues who have had Kickstarters that went on to fund successfully. So,
Right.
that's the encouraging part. And I ask them, how did you stay sane through the middle weeks? And most of them are like, oh, I looked sane. I'm glad. Oh, good. I was faking it well enough then. Yay. To a man, to a woman, the answer has been, you don't stay sane. Don't expect to be sane. It's going to be one of the craziest months of your life, and that just is all there is to it. So at least I can't say I wasn't warned, because that's how it's definitely turning out. It's not, for me, this is not the fun part of the job. I'm not a marketing type,
Right.
but unless you can find somebody who's going to just do it for you. I mean, you could, if you luck out like Penny Arcade and find a Robert Koo who's going to work free for a year to market your webcomic and make it happen.
Right,
then,
and be a genius on top of that.
yeah, exactly. I mean, they're extremely funny guys. I don't begrudge them that, but that pretty much doesn't happen. Aside from them, it's not a thing that happens. So I feel that us creators have to learn to put on that marketing hat, that fundraising hat, all those zillion different hats, a lot of which I'm wearing in the Kickstarter. I had to make a video for the first time. Never made a video. Yeah. And I thought I had someone lined up to help with the video, and then wound up not, but luckily with enough time to do it for myself. So there's 10 zillion points in this at which I could have said, I'm just not ready for this, I can't do this, forget it, and crawl back off the diving board. But I didn't. So, yay me. And I'm far from the only or the first, of course. That's what's comforting about this, is that so many other people who have little webcomics like me are doing exactly this. And it's kind of a gradual bootstrapping thing, but looking to their examples and learning from them has been very, very helpful.
Cool. You also mentioned hitting the road. Have you done conventions with your White Wolf projects and past projects?
Almost not at all. I've been to Dragon Con, which was the big con that White Wolf, which is now Onyx Path, by the way. They're still doing their thing, and they're doing it through the Kickstarter model. I did one really big Dragon Con event, and there was a signing. It was for the big rule book for the new edition, as I remember right. And that was basically it. My obligations were very few. But I've been with people who do the convention scene as vendors long enough to know not to underestimate it. That's going to be another diving board moment of, oh my God, I can't handle this.
It's kind of its own beast, I've noticed. Like I went in thinking that I would just be peddling my books, and then I would get out there and find out, well, what people actually wanted to buy were prints. And then it's like, well, that's not why I'm here.
Right. Yeah, I expect to have a big learning curve when I start on that. I'm going to try to have at least a small variety of merch, because like you said, that sometimes that is how it goes. Sometimes, you bring books and they want prints, or you bring prints and they wanted keychains, or
yeah.
And I guess you have to learn each con's strengths, But again, we're very fortunate that so many people have gone these routes before, that if we, take the time to seek them out and ask them about it, so far I've found that people are very free with sharing their experience.
Yeah. Just a total it's all pizza moment. What are your favorite vampire characters?
Oh my. Well, the ones that are actually vampires. I do like the vampires of True Blood for their humor, for the absurd humor. Mm-hmm. A lot of times I can't take their serious plot lines very seriously, but I love the...
Yeah. I don't think they take their serious plot lines very seriously.
I think I was sold on the series the moment that Eric Northman, the big blonde Viking-y looking dude, comes down into the basement to see his prisoners that are chained up, and he's got foil in his hair for highlights.
Oh, yeah.
And, stuff like that, where it's just very irreverent twist on the character, and you're like, oh, of course he's not a real blonde.
Oh, yeah.
Things like that. I like vampires that kind of poke at the conventions. I think that right now that they're my favorite vampires. I also like some of the classic ones. I was very into Anne Rice back in the day. She's also she's a very big influence in my vampire writing. But again, that's more serious, more straight vampire fiction. So I can't handle it without parodying it. But
sure.
But that doesn't mean I don't love the original. That doesn't mean I'm not in love with all her little characters and how gloriously emotionally messed up they are.
Well, Lestat he's so irreverent in and of himself that I think he lends himself beautifully to that.
Yes, the brat prince. He definitely has a little bit of a centuries of tradition, screw that attitude happening that probably did make its way into my mindset with After Daylight, at least a little bit. Trying to think if there's there's so many that my relationship with them is more about what I would have rather done with them if I were writing them, but
ooh, let's play that game.
Oh no. But that's where stuff comes from. I mean, part of what After Daylight did come out of was instead of throwing rocks at the screen for True Blood, where they would make these wonderful settings, this wonderful setting where vampires and humans are aware of each other, and they would start to hint at how that played out in terms of the politics, in terms of the social change. But, oh no, Suki just got kidnapped again, we have to deal with that, or you're breaking up this couple for the fourth time, we're too busy to possibly deal with politics. And I was like, but that was the stuff I wanted to see. Get back to that, man. Suki, whatever,
Right.
So, that can be a prod to your own creativity to critique things that you hate or things that you love and hate, as is more often the case with me.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think a writer's mind is constantly going, if I were doing that, would I do it just like that, or would I change this and this around a little bit to make it even better?
Mm-hmm.
Right. You kind of try to write the things that you would want to see yourself.
Yep,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. That's basically what it is. And hoping that that's going to be something that is unique enough that somebody will care enough to read it, of course.
Right. Do you? I'm going to kind of ping pong back to the art. Do you work mostly digitally, or do you work mostly traditionally, or is it really a blend of both?
It's a blend. Right now, I'd say it's probably tending more toward the digital. Basically, I usually digitally pencil, although there are times that I go ahead and do pencils. And the inking has been digital since fairly early on. I find that it really helps me line things cleanly to be able to blow it up really big in the software,
Sure.
which you can't do inking the traditional way. So totally cheat with the ink. I use Manga Studio. However, the shading is done by hand with Copic, however it's pronounced. Those markers. Those lovely markers, those lovely expensive markers.
Yeah, that dry out entirely too quickly.
Yeah, but at least I only have to buy them in grayscale because I made that decision to do it in grayscale. And I actually hope I never have to go digital with that part, even though it might be faster, just because I really do love working with the shading and the blending and the modeling. And I get compliments on it. People all the time will be like, I just love your ink washes, and I'll smile and nod and not tell them that it's just markers that are made to look like. But it's the way that I work with them is very watercolory or very ink washy in the approach. So it winds up kind of looking that way, which is fine with me. If it comes out looking very very old school, very organic with the shading, I can live with that.
Right. Well, I was just puzzling that before we started. I was like, I think it's digital, but it doesn't quite. Yeah. So no, excellent. So then, do you print it out and then you do your Copic on top of a printout, or?
Yeah, I print out the line art and then marker over that. And of course, the nice thing about that is if you completely bork the shading, you can just print out a new copy and do it again, which is what those markers were invented for, by the way, was poor manga artists that are always on deadline and always have to draw a zillion miles a minute. If they, mess up their shading or toning or something, they can't afford to, go do the inks all over again too. So they had to developed a brand of marker that would not bleed Xerox toner. That was basically the idea. So that's why those markers exist. So I can I can marker over it with total confidence that it's not going to make any of the ink lines run. And the effect is beautiful. They blend really, really nicely.
Oh yeah, yes.
Do you ever get done drawing like a panel and you worked really hard on it and it looks really beautiful, but then when you get it up on the computer as the webcomic and there's missing details, do you ever feel disappointed that it is a webcomic and not the full in its full glory that it will be once the book comes out? Occasionally, but I comfort myself with the knowledge that I always did intend to publish the print book. Right. And in some ways, it's good if the webcomic is a little bit more of a tease, in that somebody can be like, I can tell she wrote in an Easter egg over there, but the picture's so small I can't read it. Right.
It's just hey, there's a reason to buy the book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the scanning, I did learn some hard lessons about scanning the markers in. You can't do quite the same range and fineness on the, once you scan it in, you lose some of the range and some of the fineness. And you have to do some digital adjustments to try and get some of it back, but even so, you'll never get all of it back. For instance, basically anything lighter than a 10% gray just doesn't scan.
Yeah.
And even
That-
10%
right.
gray scans kind of unevenly with the markers. So I learned that I just didn't get to have that end of the spectrum. But in art that's, in original art that's going to be hung up as original art, you can indulge a little bit more. So occasionally, but by and large, it comes through pretty well, and it's going to look even cooler when it's printed offset, legit
Yeah.
offset printing style.
Since we're hitting about 40 minutes, probably kind of wrap it up. I know Jesse needs to go vote still.
I gotta rock the
Gotta
boat.
do your civic duty, yeah.
Anything else like web links and stuff that you'd like to hit before we end the interview?
Yeah. Let me go ahead and tell the people where to find the stuff.
Okay.
Volume 1 is complete and free to read on the web at web resolution web size, and that's at afterdaylight.com. Really easy, just afterdaylight, one word, .com. So you can actually totally try before you buy. Read all of Volume 1 for free if you want, and then come by and visit my Kickstarter, which there's a link to that from the comics page. Or if I could give the URL, but it's big and long.
Yeah.
And it's easier just to search After Daylight in the Kickstarter search box, or you can get there from my webpage. And again, we're about halfway through, so there's not all that much longer. And there are lots of different tiers available. There's some book-only tiers, but then there's some with considerable extra bonus goodies as well, like custom art and some other things. So please do come by and check it out.
And that's by the 19th. I think for some reason during the episode I kept saying the 11th. I'm not sure where I pulled that number, but the 19th is when the Kickstarter ends, right?
I don't know. I'm doing the Kickstarter. I'm doing good to remember what my name is, but I'm pretty sure that it ends on the 19th. It's a 30-day Kickstarter, so
Okay.
yeah, you do have a while left to go, but not too much longer.
But
So don't sit on it.
Yeah, don't wait.
Yeah,
don't wait till the
don't
last
wait
minute.
till the 19th.
Yeah.
Get in by the 11th.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't give the creator a heart attack. Come in and show your love while it's still kind of in the middle there. That would be greatly appreciated and contribute greatly to my mental health.
And for the listener, wherever you're listening to this at, I will include links to the afterdaylight.com website, as well as I'll include the Kickstarter link too. Wherever you find this, there will be a link somewhere.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And I was joking with Sarah that I've never been on the Grawlix Night episode yet.
Grawlix Nights. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
We
That's
made it.
true. That's true. It's even and it's always night somewhere. I don't know if it's night where you guys are, but it's.
It's getting there.
And you guys know what night is.
Ah.
It's you know what night is?
Yeah.
It's after daylight.
Yeah.
Ah.
I think you beat me to my episode title.
What night is?
What night is? It's after
Yes.
daylight.
Nice.
All right. Well, awesome. Thanks for joining up with us on this.
Oh, pleasure is mine. I'm really excited. My very first podcast, and for it to be with you guys is just seems all the right.
Oh, well,
All the yeah.
it's
So-
very exciting for us too. You're the first person that the first creator that we've had contacted over the internet and set up an actual record session like this.
Yep.
On the Voicentron.
Yeah, well, I
On the
hope it happens many more times with really fabulous, famous, or almost famous guests.
We'll take all of those.
We'll take
all.
Yeah.
We'll take it.
Yep,
Thank you for being the first.
absolutely. Yep. In 5 years, you won't be taking my calls. I know how it is. You'll forget where you came from.
Oh yeah. We're the ones
But
moving
then we'll
up.
have an
Huh?
anniversary episode and we'll be begging you.
That's
Oh, yeah.
it. That's it. Just it's kind of like I'm being hired to work on the nostalgia vampire titles now from Onyx Path. Like, can you come back and do some old school for us?
Yes.
It's the game's 20th anniversary. It is now a nostalgia title. I try not I try not to feel weird about that. But it's also wonderful that, of course, 20 years later, people are still going, "Hey, we liked Vampire the Masquerade. We'll lay out money for more of it."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a good feeling. So I guess I won't complain about feeling old too much.
Wow, 20 years.
Axton was telling me today that the Animaniacs are now 21 years old.
Oh my!
Oh, wow.
Right? So the Warner Brothers and their sister Dot can now drink legally.
Oh no! But it is. It has been that long. It really has.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The 90s are so long ago.
Yep.
I've got a future prediction to end the show on.
Oh, that's great.
Let's have it.
All right. This has been Grawlix Nights, and in the future, all podcasts will be required to have a Nights brand YouTube spin-off show.
Complete with David Hasselhoff.
Yeah, oh man, with keyboard ties and cheeseburgers and everything.
All right.
Do it right.